Chapter 21. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Way up north in Europe, in the dead of night, a dark energy hung over a spooky forest. Caw. 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 Black crows circled in the sky before settling on an old, run-down house. Heh heh heh, that presence. Inside, in front of an ancient TV, a middle-aged woman in a black robe was practically vibrating with excitement. The TV screen showed a grim scene, Wanda putting out the fire. By all the gods! The great Scython! Chaos magic has finally surfaced. The woman gripped the sides of the TV, her blue eyes reflecting the images with a greedy gleam. If Hood were here, he'd recognize her instantly. It was Agatha Harkness. New York. Chaos magic. I'm on my way. Agatha Harkness threw her arms wide, her black robe billowing. A thick black mist erupted from beneath her robe, engulfing her completely. The next instant, Agatha Harkness was gone from the old house, vanished. Meanwhile, back at Avengers HQ, today was definitely Wanda's day. Exhausted from interviews, but loving it, she just wanted to crash when she got back to the base, but she found all the Avengers waiting in the living room. What's up? Wanda looked at them, surprised. Why is everyone still up so late? But even though this was Avengers HQ, they rarely all hung out together. Seeing everyone gathered like this, she wondered if something big was going down. Congrats, your approval ratings went through the roof today. It won't be long before you completely turn things around. Tony was the first to speak, raising his glass with a grin. Today's PR blitz had been a huge success. The internet was finally starting to give them a break. They'd be out of the woods soon. Ever since you did your thing, those annoying protesters finally stopped shouting that they wanted to take us down. Falcon, aka Sam, shrugged with a playful grin. Those guys with the signs were out there every day. Even with the soundproofing, it was still a major headache. Nobody wants a bunch of crazies screaming outside their house 24/7. Didn't expect you to pull off something so huge under the radar. That was a real surprise. Natasha propped her feet up on the table. Wanda had definitely delivered an unexpected win. Good job, but what exactly was that new ability? Steve was curious. Everyone perked up at that. The flame had been saturated with that mutagenic green mist, just compressing it wouldn't get rid of the mist, but Wanda had used some power they'd never seen before. I didn't unlock anything new. I just used my old powers. Wanda walked over and sat next to Natasha, grabbing a pillow. I just figured out how to control them better. They were all friends here, so she wasn't going to keep secrets. She might as well come clean. Not a new ability. Tony was floored. He never imagined Wanda's powers could evolve like that, and according to Wanda, she'd always had this ability, but just now unlocked it. Wasn't your power from the Mind Stone? Dr. Banner wondered. Wanda hugged the pillow and shook her head slightly, looking confused. I don't really know. He never really explained it. When Wanda said he, Tony Stark zeroed in on it. Who's he? Someone they didn't know about, who might be the key to Wanda's abilities. Wanda realized she'd let the cat out of the bag. She couldn't just spill the beans about Hood. Not yet, but she couldn't think of a good excuse. If she told them, how would she explain her relationship with him? If you're keeping things from us, one little slip-up could screw everything up. Tony pressed her, his face serious. This mystery person could throw a wrench in their plans. Wanda clutched the pillow, practically burying her face in it. She gritted her teeth, conflicted. She really didn't want to tell them. Wanda, why don't you go get some rest? Steve jumped in, trying to give her an out. Yeah, you've been running around all day. You must be wiped. Natasha chimed in. As a woman, she already had a hunch about what was going on. Only these clueless guys couldn't see Wanda's bashful look, and this person must be really important to Wanda, or she wouldn't be so secretive. Wanda looked relieved. She dropped the pillow and practically bolted from the room. Hey! Tony frowned, watching her go. Tony, she has a right to make her own choices. Everyone's got secrets. Steve stopped Tony, his voice firm. And some things are better left unsaid. But this affects all of us. Tony said darkly. If you're gonna worry, you might as well think about how to deal with Ross. Steve's face turned grim. If they got sucked into the official channels, the Avengers would become nothing more than tools. Tony heard that and snapped, then you decide. That he spun around and stormed out. In his office, Tony Stark slumped into his leather chair and called Pepper. Find out who's been in contact with Wanda lately. Until he knew the truth, he wouldn't be able to rest easy. Sigh. After hanging up, Tony Stark looked exhausted. The pressure had been crushing him lately, and he didn't know how to let off steam. Maybe I should go see Hood. The thought popped into his head, but he immediately dismissed it. Hood was always busy. After dithering for a while, Tony Stark walked out onto the balcony, threw on his suit, and took off. He just needed to fly for a while to clear his head. Chapter 22. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Inside the manor, Hodder told Imelda, go tell everyone it's a day off. He wanted to test out the armored insect instrument in private. Imelda bowed her thanks and immediately dismissed the maids. Hodder conjured the Kabuto insect analyzer from the system. It was a steel transformation device shaped like a rhinoceros beetle. A notification popped up. Kabuto insect instrument, requires the instrument's approval to transform into Kabuto. Buzz. As he examined it, the beetle suddenly buzzed loudly and broke free. Think you can escape? Hodder snapped his hand shut. The Phoenix Force wrapped around the beetle, pulling it back into his grasp. He held it tightly, subduing the device with his power. Transform. Kabuto. Hodder swung the Kabuto insect detector. Golden light erupted, and a green, nanobarrier-like light spread over his body. A flash of white, and Kabuto's battle suit materialized. Mysterious energy surged around him. This is Judo. Hodder looked himself up and down in the mirror. He was transformed into a knight with a long, rhinoceros beetle-like horn. It definitely had a kingly vibe. Compared to Tony's Iron Man suit, each had its own strengths. Gotta take it for a spin. He couldn't resist the urge. It was late, perfect for a test run without attracting too much attention. He headed to the garage, filled with all kinds of vehicles. Flying Fords, unicycles, flying Mercedes, jet motorcycles, mostly system rewards he'd just tossed in there. Hodder stopped at a dark black motorcycle. It resembled a Harley Fat Boy, but the exhaust was different, and the display was a projected 3D screen. Another system prize, amphibious motorcycle, land, air, water, 3-mode amphibious motorcycle. Hodder straddled the bike and gave the throttle a small twist. The motorcycle roared to life and shot out of the garage. Sweet, he felt the wind blast past him and hit a button on the throttle. 2 jet tubes popped out from the wheels. A twist of the throttle, and blue flames erupted. A streak of light tore down the road. Even at 300 miles per hour, Hodder's reflexes allowed him to handle it easily. Head to Hell's Kitchen. After a moment's hesitation, he decided to go. Maybe he'd run into Gwen there. Slowing down, Hodder entered Hell's Kitchen. He immediately drew attention. Yo, man, your cosplay is dope. A black man with dreadlocks waved, a bulge around his waist. New York might be the city that never sleeps, but Hell's Kitchen was something else. Dark, messy streets, graffiti everywhere. Runes, symbols, vector art, all screaming chaos. Just like the mixed blood of the people here, on the dirty sidewalks, people lay passed out, lost in booze or something worse. Chaos, crime, blood, death, it was all on display. Hey! Kid, cool bike. Now ditch it and scram. This is Kingpin's territory. The dreadlocked man waved his hand, and others surrounded Hodder, patting the guns at their waists. Kingpin. Hodder was surprised. He hadn't expected a Kingpin in this universe. Everyone in the Marvel knew Kingpin. He ran the East Coast underworld. Meticulous, brilliant, and mostly muscle. They said he could punch through a wall. Wonder if taking out Kingpin would get me a reward. Hodder muttered. His system reward seemed event-based. Hey, you deaf. Don't think those weird clothes will save you. The dreadlocked man sneered. Time for some respect. Why's it gotta be like this? Hodder sighed, put down the motorcycle's kickstand, and suddenly lashed out. A swift kick sent the guy next to him flying. You wanna die? The dreadlocked man pulled his revolver, but before he could fire, a steel-clad hand grabbed it. With a crack, the revolver and the man's hand were crushed. Aw! The screams echoed through the street, others pulled knives, ready to jump him. But against Hodder, they were just kids playing, a few quick moves, and they were all writhing on the ground. Up above, a red and gold blur zipped past. Tony, out for a joyride, he noticed the commotion below. Jarvis, zoom in. He saw a guy in red and silver tangling with thugs. Tony smiled. Looks like I've got fans now. Chapter 23. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Tony just smiled, shook his head, then turned and flew off. From way up high, it was clear the guy in the red and silver suit could handle those lowlifes easily. He wasn't about to waste his time on that garbage. Tell me. Where's that bastard Kingpin? Hod, tears streaming down his face, grabbed the thug by the collar and slammed him against a car window. The guy's face was mashed against the glass, and the force made him whine. I don't know what you're talking about. Get off me. It hurts. The gangster gritted his teeth, groaning at Hod. He knew where Kingpin was, but he'd be a dead man if he talked. Kingpin ruled the underworld. He knew what was at stake. Hey, how about you just tell me the truth? Hod sighed, his eyes hardening. He suddenly hoisted the man up and slammed him down hard on the hood. Thud, star, the gangster curled up in agony, his body shaking uncontrollably. It felt like his insides had been pulverized. Ugh, ugh. He gasped for air, his face mottled with burst blood vessels. Still being stubborn, huh? That's okay, I've got time. Hod stared at the man, his face blank. He had no sympathy for scum like this, especially since he could see from the tattoos on his face that he'd killed at least 3 people. Before the gangster could say anything, Hod seized his hand and squeezed with brutal force. Crack, star. I'll tell you. That the gangster was losing it. He couldn't believe someone this terrifying existed. And his methods were way more brutal than he'd imagined. He really thought he was going to die if he didn't spill. Why couldn't you just say so? Hod asked impatiently. This guy was totally wasting his time. Kingpin's at an abandoned FBI warehouse in the sticks. He's got some big deal going down there today. The gangster sobbed, blurting out everything he knew. Great, you're being real cooperative. Hod grinned, then suddenly punched the gangster hard in the chin. The gangster's eyes rolled back, and he passed out cold. Honestly, getting info from the guy wasn't that hard. After all, he had the power of the Phoenix and could have just persuaded him to talk, but he wanted to test out Jetto's abilities, so he went with the rough interrogation. How long are you going to stay up there? Hod shrugged his shoulders, turning casually to face the 5-story building across the street. Bang, star. A white figure suddenly jumped, did a flip in the air, and landed lightly on the ground. How did you find me? Gwen stared at the mysterious figure, surprised. She'd just arrived, her movements were super quiet, and she shouldn't have been spotted. Plus, she was good at hiding, but this guy had pinpointed her location without even looking. Maybe I just have a sharper sense of hearing, Ms. Spider. Hod chuckled, looking Gwen over. So, Ms. Spider, what were you snooping around for? Snooping? I was gathering intel. Gwen awkwardly kicked a pebble with her right foot. Hey, Rhino Beetle, if you're going after Kingpin, can I tag along? Why do you call me a unicorn? Hod frowned. Don't you have a big horn? Gwen pointed at the horn. I'm a rhinoceros beetle. Hod leaned against the car, asking casually, aren't you worried I'm one of the bad guys? This girl was fearless. She was willing to team up after barely knowing him. Anyone who's Kingpin's enemy is a friend. Gwen answered without hesitation, her voice firm. You got a beef with Kingpin? Hod was surprised that the Spider-Woman of this world had a grudge against Kingpin. So, are you in or out? Gwen seemed hesitant to talk, but ultimately didn't give a reason. Alright, Hod didn't press. He could hear the sadness in Gwen's voice, and he figured even if he didn't go, Gwen would definitely go anyway. In a straight-up fight, Gwen probably wouldn't stand a chance against Kingpin. If he remembered right, Kingpin could overpower Spider-Man in a head-to-head brawl. He walked to the motorcycle, hopped on, and turned to Gwen. "Little Spider, let's go." Hod gestured for Gwen to come over. "No, Gwen shook her head, about to refuse, when Hod said, "Everything around here is pretty low. You sure you can keep up?" Hearing that, Gwen glanced around Hell's Kitchen. Yeah, swinging around on webs here was pretty much a pipe dream. After hesitating, she climbed onto Hod's motorcycle. In the suburbs, outside an abandoned factory surrounded by trees, a dim yellow light glowed from the huge factory. From the outside, it looked like a lumber mill. Even in the dim light, they could see figures patrolling the perimeter. Each of them was armed. "Shoo!" Hod stopped the motorcycle far from the factory and shushed Gwen. Then he ran his right hand across the motorcycle, and a green snake-shaped pattern appeared on the back of his hand. The motorcycle vanished in an instant. Where'd the motorcycle go? It was right here. Gwen's eyes nearly popped out of her head. The motorcycle had been right in front of her just a second ago. And the craziest part was she hadn't even felt a thing. Who is this guy? Surprised, huh? Hod turned to look at Gwen. Totally. Gwen nodded seriously. If she had that power, her fighting skills would get a huge boost. "If you want to learn, I'll teach you later." Hod wanted to ruffle her hair, but he resisted the urge. "Teach me later." Even though Hod was wearing a hood and his voice was different, Gwen felt like she'd heard those words before. Where have I heard that before? Chapter 24. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Move it, let's go. Hood's voice snapped Gwen out of her thoughts. She nodded automatically and quietly followed him. Shoo, Kingpin's brought his A-team. He personally trained these guys to clear the path. They ducked behind a rusty old container. Gwen squinted, peering into the distance. Sure enough, soldiers armed to the teeth, practically special forces material, came into view. They were kitted out with top-of-the-line bulletproof helmets, vests, and even face masks. Kingpin's loaded, Hood thought to himself. That gear's gotta cost $5 or $6 a set, and he had dozens of guys equipped like that. Gotta watch ourselves. These aren't your average goons. Gwen stretched her limbs, carefully trying to spot any weaknesses. She was good, sure, but not invincible. They'd had special training, so extra caution was needed. But just as she said that, Hood stood up. He walked right out into the open, heading straight towards the soldiers. Hey, Gwen hissed, "Unicorn, what are you doing?" She wasn't sure if he could even hear her with that armor on. Walking out like that was suicide. Testing out this combat suit, Hood didn't even glance back, loosening up as he walked. He'd taken out some thugs earlier, but hadn't learned anything useful. To see what the suit could really do, he needed a proper test. The elite soldier spotted him as soon as he stepped out. Heads up. We've got an intruder. Instead of shooting, they immediately reported Hood's advance. Remaining vigilant, the news spread fast, and squads from other locations started converging on his position. In seconds, Hood was surrounded. He calmly reached for the Kabuto beetle gadget on his belt. Masked form, he yanked the beetle head lever to the right, put on. The night form of the rhinoceros beetle transformed. Hood crossed his arms as light flashed across the armor's surface, steel plates snapping into place. The single horn on his head split into two forked steel horns. The overall look was like a shield, seemingly indestructible. He'd chosen this form specifically for its defense. It could probably withstand a direct missile hit. That looks awesome. Gwen peeked out from behind the container, eyes wide. No science nerd could resist a suit like that, and she couldn't even begin to figure out how it worked. Fire! An elite soldier pulled the trigger without hesitation, the air filled with gunfire. Bullets rained down on Hood. Bang, bang, bang. Their training kicked in, firing in alternating bursts. The rapid gunfire echoed, like a string of firecrackers going off. The bullets slammed into Hood's masked form armor, sending sparks and metal fragments flying. Flashes of light bloomed across the armor, like fireworks in the night sky. The metallic clanging was constant. The soldiers kept firing until Hood went down. Hood, meanwhile, calmly observed the effects on the masked form armor, standing in the hail of bullets. The impacts were barely a tickle, thanks to the heavy armor. In his mind, these guys were just wasting their time. Looks like he can handle them. Gwen finally relaxed. Hood stood firm, like an unbreakable fortress. She'd overestimated the threat. These guys were no match for him. My turn to play. Gwen nimbly jumped out from behind the container, rolled, and shot out webs at the surrounding elite soldiers. The sticky webbing plastered itself to their masks, blinding them. As they struggled to tear it off, a white blur zipped past. The white figure rolled and jumped between trees and obstacles, moving so fast it was hard to follow. Gwen, covered by Hood, traced an arc through the air, landing behind the enemy. The elite soldiers were caught between a rock and a hard place, inside the factory. Give me the North Shore. We team up, our operation will expand overseas soon. A fat, bald man sat on a black sofa, his suit stretched tight. He leaned on a cane with his right hand and raised a wine glass with his left, a cruel smile on his face. Dad Ada. Just as Kingpin was about to toast with his guests, a burst of gunfire erupted outside. He frowned and turned to his men. Boss, we've got 2 intruders. A subordinate quickly pulled out a tablet and brought up surveillance footage. Ghost Spider. Kingpin recognized the white figure immediately. And who's the red metal guy? Iron Man. Boss, don't think it's Iron Man. The subordinate bowed and explained respectfully. Really? Let the doctor activate Plan A. Take them out. Kingpin finally relaxed, waving his hand dismissively. If Iron Man was involved, the Avengers might show up, but these 2 small fries weren't worth worrying about. Mr. Kingpin, is everything all right outside? The guest across from him looked uneasy. Don't worry, just a minor nuisance. It'll be taken care of. Kingpin grinned and lifted his wine glass again. Outside, bang, bang, bang. Hood stood calmly in the middle of the battlefield, methodically taking down the guards with his pistol. A quick sweep of the gun, the guards fell one after another, blood pooling around their heads. Are you a scientist? Gwen spun through the air and landed next to Hood. She was curious about his identity. She attended a lot of science conferences, but didn't recognize this tech. At first, she thought it was an Iron Man knockoff, but this was a completely different type of armor. Let's go. Hood didn't answer, and walked toward the factory. What's your armor made of? It can't be regular metal, right? Or it would have been toast by now. Is it vibranium? Gwen followed closely, peppering him with questions. She really couldn't figure out who this guy was. Boom. Suddenly, the factory door exploded. More than 20 strange shapes emerged from the smoke. They were clearly robots, with mecha bodies and spider legs. They scuttled up the walls, mouths opening to reveal machine guns. Kingpin's spider slayers. Gwen's face fell. These robots were designed specifically to counter her. She'd dealt with them before, but now they were being mass-produced. Chapter 25. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Looks like Gene Bing's got a real soft spot for you. That kind of tech doesn't come cheap. Hood didn't give the spider bots a second glance, just a teasing grin at the little spider beside him. Focus. These things are no joke. Gwen crouched low, her expression grim behind the mask, the large eyes on her mask crinkled with concern. She'd tangled with these bots before. They were seriously quick and strong, even on rough terrain. Their reaction time was as good as hers. Boom. Then, missiles shot out from beneath the spider robots, leaving trails of fire. The 20+ missiles zoomed skyward, reaching them in a flash. Crap. Move it. Gwen dove to the side. She never imagined they'd mass-produce these things and load them with missiles. Hood casually snatched a missile headed straight for his face. The rest slammed into him in a fiery barrage. Boom. The explosions rocked Hood's position, engulfing him in flames. The ground erupted, showering them with dirt. From above, it looked like a mushroom cloud. The blast was so intense, it scorched the earth around them. Even the debris was scattered by the force. Unicorn. Gwen's eyes went wide. Her teammate, who was just fighting alongside her, had been blown to smithereens. She could barely breathe, never expecting things to end like this. Amateurs. Inside the factory, Kingpin watched the tablet screen and took a swig of his wine. no superhero could withstand that kind of missile barrage. These missiles were top-of-the-line military hardware, the kind Stark Industries used to sell. But as the smoke cleared, a massive figure stood there, unfazed. The ground around him was charred, but the mecha was untouched. This armor's pretty tough. Hood stretched, feeling nothing, not even an itch. He'd been worried the suit wouldn't hold up. Turns out, even 20+ missiles barely made him flinch. Damn it. Impossible. Jean Bing's hand jerked, spilling red wine down his shirt. He didn't even notice, his eyes glued to the screen, face twisted in fury. Mr. Jean Bing. I think I'll be going now. That the guest across from him hesitated, ready to bolt. He was just here for a deal, not to risk his life. Don't worry, everything's under control. Jean Bing snapped, trying to reassure the client, then barked at his men, kill him. Just kill him. He'd faced countless enemies, but this was the first time he'd felt so humiliated. His client was sitting right there, and he couldn't even take down some nobody. Ha! At Jean Bing's command, more than 20 spider robots split into 2 teams and swarmed Hood and Gwen. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The spider bots encircled them, their metal legs snapping like spears, slicing through the air, fueled by engines. Each strike packed the force of an armor-piercing bullet. Watch out! They're programmed with the fighting styles of top martial artists. They've even got basic AI chips to adapt to any attack. Gwen yelled, dodging the robots. I got it. Hood seemed to anticipate every move, effortlessly evading the attacks. He calmly snatched a spider leg and snapped it with his elbow. He moved with a calmness, bordering on elegance. Gwen dodged a leg, her mind reeling as she watched Hood fight. Who was this guy? Pulling off intricate martial arts moves in the middle of this. Only someone like Tony Stark could compare to a talent like that she couldn't help but mutter. His technique was unreal. It looked like simple dodging, but every step, every movement was steeped in martial arts: Wing Chun, Baji, Bagua, Muay Thai, boxing, judo, joint locks, you name it, and he had to be a master of each one to blend them like that. Bang! Hood used a Baji strike to smash a spider bot away. Is that all these things can do? He flexed his wrist, a hint of impatience in his eyes. If he wasn't curious to see what these spider bots were capable of, he would have finished this long ago. After all, when it came to fighting, he was in a class of his own. Probably nobody in this world could outfight him. Buzz buzz buzz. Suddenly, the spider bot in front of him exploded. The silver machine parts quickly reformed into nearly 100 mechanical spiders. They were smaller, but the sheer number of them was overwhelming. They're splitting up. Gwen shouted a warning, ready to take on her share of the robots, but then she saw all of the spider bots swarming Hood. Her face paled. The rhino beetle armor was strong, but it couldn't hold out against that many bots. In this situation, even the best fighting skills wouldn't help. Looks like old Jean Bing's upping the ante. Hood muttered to himself, watching the swarm. He reached for his belt and flicked a switch to the right. CSTOFF, armor explosion. A voice announced. His heavy armor exploded outward. The fragments flew towards the mechanical spiders like a cloud of shrapnel. Hood pulled the rhino beetle horn on his belt again. Time up sound effect. The next second, the mechanical spiders that were in the air slowed down their descent speed instantly. Even the air around him nearly froze. Nearby, Gwen was supporting them from the air. Noticed the same effect. The grass leaves in the wind were also swaying at full speed. Is this time acceleration? Hodder looked around as if everything was still, with a hint of enlightenment in his eyes. It was as if time had been slowed down. No. To be precise, my speed has increased. The reason they can't see it is because I am moving at a super speed that human eyes cannot recognize. After thinking about all this, his pupils shrank rapidly. It seems that we should solve these troubles around first. Hood twisted his body and walked slowly among the spiders. Whenever he passed a mechanical spider, he would quickly tap it. At this time, the fragments that exploded also flew around at an almost stagnant speed. Time up ends. The next second. Boom! All the robots explode. Gwen, who is in the air, has a drastic change of expression. What's going on? Why did everything explode all of a sudden? That I didn't even blink, and that red afterimage, and inside the factory. Why did it suddenly explode? Is this the speed that this mecha can reach? King Bing's eyes widened, and even his breathing became rapid. This was the only thought left in his mind. But how could he not know about the person who possessed such technology? Could it be that it was really Tony Stark, but this guy changed into a battle suit? Chapter 26. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The exploded robot spider lay in pieces on the ground, steel shrapnel everywhere. Unicorn, can that suit of yours go any faster? Gwen rushed to Hord's side, eyeing his suit with envy. Her eyes were wide with admiration. She couldn't resist standing on her toes and stroking the bright red unicorn horn. Hord noticed her reaching and lowered his head slightly to make it easier for her. How does that even work? Gwen was even more thrilled now that Hord had adjusted for her. This armor is so awesome, you can actually pet it. And this big red horn feels amazing. Everything that's happened tonight has blown my mind. Scratch that, everything today has. After all, the Mr. Hord I met today was pretty mysterious too. Had enough touching? Hord glanced down, gently patting Gwen's head. We need to go find Kingpin. Yeah, but it just feels so cool. Gwen reluctantly pulled her hand away. This thing is seriously awesome. It just got hit by missiles, and it's still smooth. You'll get to touch bigger ones later. Hord gave a mysterious smile. What? You have other armor? Gwen's eyes widened, looking at Hord excitedly. She really didn't expect there were more suits. Sweet, innocent Gwen. Hord didn't answer. Heading into the factory, the smell of chemicals hit him immediately. Ugh, that stinks. What are they doing in here? Even with her hood up, Gwen wrinkled her nose. Looks like they're doing a brisk business tonight. Hord recognized the scent instantly, figuring out the warehouse's purpose. It looks like an abandoned factory, but it's actually a stash house. And judging by those boxes, the whole place is probably full of product. Bang. That a loud crash echoed behind them. The ground even shook slightly. They turned to see the damaged warehouse door now blocked by a thick iron plate. Judging by the mechanism above, it was a custom-built barricade. The warehouse door was just for show. This was the real security. Thump, thump, thump. Suddenly, the dim factory blazed with light as the chandeliers flicked on. Welcome to my wood shop. A tall, powerful figure emerged from a second-floor corridor, using a cane. As he did, a group of armed thugs appeared from the shadows, all pointing their weapons at Hord and Gwen. Kingpin. Gwen spat out the name, her voice filled with rage. Hord sensed the mix of emotions swirling within her. Little spider, what are the odds? I travel all this way, and I still run into you. Kingpin crooked a finger, and one of his men immediately lit a cigar for him. I'm here for you. Gwen snarled. Man, she hates him. Hord could feel her burning hatred for Kingpin. Here for me. Kingpin took a long drag on his cigar, then turned his angry gaze to the red and silver figure. If it weren't for your friend, you'd be worm food by now. That he really didn't expect someone to be protecting the damn spider brat. If I'd gotten here sooner, you'd be worm food. Hord's voice was cool, almost dismissive. He hadn't known about Kingpin's involvement, or he would have intervened sooner. Really? Kingpin gritted his teeth, eyeing Hord warily. Look, pal, we don't have any beef. Why make trouble? Are you trying to buy me off? Hord asked with a smirk. Hell no. Kingpin smashed his cigar on the ground, sending sparks flying. He braced himself with one hand, then vaulted over the railing, landing on the factory floor with a heavy thud. I'd rather die than surrender. He ripped off his suit jacket, then tore open his shirt, tossing the stained garment aside. Underneath, his body was all muscle. Gotta admire the ambition. Hord nodded, impressed by Kingpin's courage. You don't get to be the underground boss of Hell's Kitchen without a little something extra. Come on. Let's see what you've got. Kingpin grinned savagely, breathing heavily. Be careful. Gwen started to warn Horde, but then remembered the armor. Maybe she should be warning Kingpin. In that case, I'll take off my armor and make it a fair fight. Horde said casually, stepping forward. He had two reasons for that. First, he respected Kingpin's guts. Second, it might trigger a reward. After all, he was about to take down the underground king of the city. What? Gwen's head swam. Why would Horde throw away his biggest advantage? His armor. He wanted to fight the Kingpin hand to hand. Had he lost his mind? Kingpin was way stronger than she was. She couldn't take him even at her best, and this guy wanted to strip down and fight. This guy wants to brawl with the boss. Ha ha ha. I bet his head's full of pudding. Did he come here looking for a death wish? Looks like we're in for a show. Kingpin's men started whispering, their eyes full of scorn. They knew how terrifying their boss was. They'd all lose if they attacked him at once. If the guy was wearing armor, it might be a fair fight, but now their boss had this in the bag. You. Kingpin was thrilled. He'd only been afraid of Horde because of the suit, but without it, the fight was anyone's game. He smirked. I didn't expect you to have so much sand. If you beat me, we're square. Deal. Horde nodded, turning to Gwen. Little spider, stay out of this. I'm about to put on a show. Gwen panicked. That's Kingpin. Are you nuts? You'll see soon enough who's crazy, and who's tougher. Horde placed his hand on his belt and activated his insect device *buzz. The bright red armor retracted, a rhinoceros beetle flying away. The light glinted off his handsome profile as the mask vanished. It's him. Gwen's eyes widened behind her mask. It's Horde. Chapter 27. You are listening at novelfull.audio. You're Mr. Hodder. Gwen was floored. It finally clicked. This was why the mystery man seemed so familiar, because it was Hodder all along. That's why he said he'd teach her. So this guy's Mr. Hood. No wonder he's always so cool. Gwen thought, eyeing Hood, if it was Mr. Hood, this was a guaranteed win. She remembered wanting to stop Mr. Hodder from being reckless, and her ears burned with embarrassment. No way. Hodder should be the one blushing. He knew the whole time but kept it a secret. He even played it so cool. She'd been totally fooled. Hod Fernandez. Kingpin's brow furrowed when he saw the man, his face contorting. If I remember right, you're on the board of Stark Group. He knew a thing or two about these bigwigs. Stark's board members were either filthy rich or connected to power. Yeah, that rings a bell. Hodder nodded, grinning. Of course, you can also call me a fearless adventurer, a decathlon champ, a philanthropy guru, and so on. Ever since acquiring shares in Stark Group, those labels kind of stuck. He just never bothered with the meetings. Mr. Hodder, let's not make this awkward. Kingpin was actually backing down. He knew crossing Stark Group was a death wish. Messing with someone of that status could cause an earthquake. Plus, Tony and the Avengers were a force to be reckoned with. He didn't think he could handle those freaks. If he could, he'd rather cut his losses and let Hood walk. Nah. And don't worry about who I am. Hod shook his head slightly, contempt in his eyes. I just want to kill everyone here, or get killed trying. You're pushing it. Don't think I'm afraid of you. In that case, don't blame me for getting rough. Kingpin's eyes blazed with murderous intent. This was the first time anyone had dared to disrespect him like that. He might be an underground kingpin, but he wouldn't let this slide, and, once Hood disappeared, no one would be able to find him. Come on then. Like a fancy gentleman, Hod rolled up his white sleeves and beckoned Kingpin forward. His mocking grin sent Kingpin into a rage. This is going to be good. Gwen fired a web and hung upside down from the roof, ready for the show. She'd been worried about Hood at first, but now that she knew who he was, she didn't sweat it. Kingpin was about to learn a tough lesson, and he deserved it. Mr. Hood could control the lizard man. After all, Kingpin lowered himself slightly, adopting a sumo stance, eyes locked on Hood. This was his signature fighting style. His massive weight gave him an advantage in suppressing opponents. Hood just stared at Kingpin with disdain. hands behind his back, acting like he was nothing. Damn you. Come and get what's coming to you. Kingpin's fury reached its peak, bang. The ground beneath his feet cracked, he leaned forward and charged at Hod, leaving only a blur of skin. He moved like a tank at full speed, each step shook the entire warehouse. Not bad. Hodder nodded, admitting Kingpin's speed was beyond normal. An average person wouldn't even be able to react, and considering Kingpin's size, it was unbelievable he could move that fast. The greater the force you apply, the greater the resistance you have to endure. To stay agile puts a lot of stress on the body, but Kingpin didn't seem bothered. But this was only for others. In front of him, Kingpin's strength was nothing. As Kingpin lunged, Hod suddenly sidestepped. The Kingpin flew right past him. Didn't think you were that quick. Kingpin stopped, turning to face Hood. The distance was only a few inches. He could have knocked Hood into next week. With his speed, even a slight brush would feel like getting hit by a truck. He was now convinced Hood was a martial artist. No ordinary person could move like that, but even so, he was sure he'd still come out on top. Just then, Hood moved. His movements were lightning fast, barely visible. Bang. Ha! At the last moment, Kingpin threw up his arms to block. The impact made his eyes widen. What kind of power was this? Before he could think, he was sent flying backwards. He slammed into the wall, blood surging up, his vision turning red. How could he kick the boss like that? Is that even human? Kingpin's men were stunned. They'd never seen their boss take a hit like that. Like I said, your boss is going down. Gwen wasn't surprised. This was Mr. Hood, after all. She was more focused on figuring out why Mr. Hood had been messing with her. You. Kingpin's arms felt like they were being ripped off. He stared at Hod in horror. The force was incredible, even stronger than the ghost spider. His gut told him the other guy wasn't even trying. Here it comes. Whoosh. Hood was in front of him in a flash. Huff. With a gust of wind, he unleashed a rapid series of kicks to Kingpin's chest. Kingpin's pupils shrunk to pinpoints. He gritted his teeth and raised his hands. Bang bang bang. The kick sounded like a string of firecrackers, a storm of afterimages. He couldn't catch his breath. In less than a second, Kingpin's arms were screaming in pain, like they were being pounded with sledgehammers. Then, his arms went numb, blood gushing out. White bones were now exposed to the air. His arms were broken. Thump. Kingpin gasped, falling to his knees. I lost. He'd never faced such a terrifying opponent. This wasn't a fight, it was a slaughter. He hadn't even grazed Hod before going down. Ding. You successfully defeated Kingpin in a one-on-one duel. Get reward. Seriously punch. To the victor goes the spoils. If you lose, you pay the price. Hod listened to the system notification, not planning on letting Kingpin off easy. He grabbed Kingpin by the head, slowly lifting him up. Winners take all. Besides, Kingpin wanted him dead. Kingpin's limbs hung limp. Though terrified, his body wouldn't respond. Mr. Hodder, please, don't kill him. Gwen released her web and dropped from the roof, calling out to stop him. Hood looked at Gwen, surprised. Didn't Gwen hate Kingpin? He never thought the ghost spider would plead for him. He sighed with relief, knowing that as long as he lived, he'd have a chance for revenge. But Gwen's next sentence shocked Hood. Gwen took a deep breath, gritting her teeth. Just leave him bedridden, a vegetable for the rest of his life. Chapter 28. You are listening at novelfull.audio. But Hod didn't see a problem. As long as nothing unexpected happened, Jean would be a vegetable for life. The scarred man leaned against the broken pillar, his eyes hollow. Call 911 for your boss. Then I'll hand over the warehouse inventory and turn myself in. Hod withdrew his hand and turned to face the terrified thugs, his expression calm. When their eyes met, the thugs nodded immediately. They just witnessed something that would haunt them forever. Let's go. Hod glanced at the motionless Kingpin and led Gwen out of the warehouse. No one dared to stop him. Who would have thought that in a single night, the city's Kingpin would be finished, reduced to nothing more than a vegetable? The moonlight shimmered like silver frost. They sat on a small hilltop overlooking the city. Gwen stared at the moon, lost in thought. Do you hate Kingpin? Hod asked, sitting beside her. He'd seen the hatred in her eyes when Kingpin appeared. She'd wanted to tear him apart. It was a level of intensity he hadn't seen from her before. Yes. Gwen nodded, pulling off her hood. Her golden hair cascaded down, shimmering like a galaxy in the moonlight. Her high cheekbones added to her beauty. Her skin looked like white jade, glowing in the moonlight. She had soft features, a strong nose, and tight lips, conveying a sense of courage. You. Hod was surprised. Gwen was usually so careful about her identity, never letting anyone see her face. He didn't expect her to remove her hood, and she was stunning. Gwen was like an orchid in the moonlight, pure and elegant, with a touch of allure. She was the opposite of Wanda, but no less beautiful. Surprised? Gwen smiled at Hod. You're not wearing a mask either, are you? It'd be rude of me to keep mine on. Yeah. Hodder stared at her face, nodding unconsciously. Gwen's beauty exceeded his expectations. My father's a cop. A little over 2 years ago, he arrested a wanted criminal and crossed Kingpin. He was beaten so badly, he's been in the hospital ever since, still hasn't woken up. Gwen looked at the distant city, her voice tinged with sadness. That was why she hated Kingpin so much. If it hadn't been for that, she might just be a normal girl. That's why you wanted Kingpin to suffer the same way. Hod hadn't realized Gwen's family had suffered so much in this universe too. That must be why she was so driven to take down Kingpin. It was a shadow that would likely haunt her for life. He remembered Gwen's father, George, was a cop, a good, brave, helpful, and motivated cop, but now he was in a coma. It was worse than death. Her only hope hung by a thread, because she didn't know if he would ever wake up. Hod said, for someone like Kingpin, becoming a vegetable is a fate worse than death. Yeah. I've been investigating this, which is why I've been going after Kingpin. But he's too strong, his power's too immense. No matter what I did, I felt so weak. Gwen looked at the moon, a flicker of determination in her eyes. She'd finally achieved what she'd been working toward. But you did it. Hod took a breath, offering a comforting smile. He was on his own path of revenge. He knew the feeling. Yeah. But it doesn't feel like it. Gwen sighed, looking down. My father's still lying in bed, never going to wake up. Despite her victory, she felt empty and hopeless. Tears welled in her eyes, but she quickly wiped them away. She didn't want to show her vulnerability. Suddenly, a large hand took hers. No. Your father has a chance to wake up. You have a way. Gwen asked, hope sparkling in her eyes. This man was so mysterious. Maybe he did have a solution. We'll visit your father at the hospital tomorrow morning. I'll take care of everything. Hod said with conviction. He had a horse charm that could cure any disease. Gwen's father would get better. Okay. Gwen didn't pull away. She held his hand, a bright smile on her face. She trusted him. Being near him made her feel at ease. Let's go. Hod let go of her hand, standing up with a smile. I'll be there tomorrow night. Yeah. Gwen nodded, smiling shyly in the moonlight. Hod got on his motorcycle and drove Gwen home. Give me your number. Gwen asked as she got off. Hod happily exchanged numbers. I'll see you later. Gwen waved her phone. Go. Hod said. Gwen seemed to muster her courage, stepped forward, and kissed Hod on the cheek. Hod's eyes widened. He hadn't expected that. I'm going home. See you tomorrow. Gwen hurried inside. Hod touched his cheek, watching her disappear into the buildings. He'd just been kissed by Gwen. If only those lips were used for more than just kissing a cheek. Chapter 29. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Saitama's serious punch. This is the punch that can split the earth, bypassing all magic defenses. But be warned, using it means a 365-day cooldown. Sprawled on the huge white manor bed, Hood grinned, reading the system's reward description. Saitama's serious punch, He nodded slowly, impressed. He knew it was Saitama's signature move. He just hadn't expected to score such an overpowered reward. One punch from that thing, and pretty much nothing above ground could stand against it. Too bad it's basically a one-time deal. Hood sighed. Even with the system, a year-long cooldown was rough, he shrugged it off. With the system, he'd get stronger anyway. It was only a matter of time, asterisk ding dong, star, his phone buzzed on the brown nightstand, Hood picked it up, and a grin spread across his face. It was a text from Wanda. Wanda, you up? Over at the Avengers HQ, Wanda, in a sheer crimson nightgown, tossed and turned in bed, the bright red fabric barely concealed her fair skin. Sighing, she couldn't get Hood off her mind. She kept checking the internet for news about him, staring at his picture. She couldn't help but smile, a wave of longing washing over her. It hadn't been that long since they'd seen each other, but it felt like ages. After hesitating for a while, she grabbed her phone and sent the text. She felt like a little kid, hoping he'd reply. Hood, what's up? Miss me already? Wanda stiffened, a smile playing on her lips. It was the best feeling in the world to get that message. Wanda, can't I text you if I don't miss you? Wanda watched the screen, kicking her legs. Hood chuckled. The little witch was hooked. Hood, cute little witch. Breakfast plans? Breakfast? Wanda blinked, then remembered their earlier conversation. Her face turned red. Wanda, be serious. She typed fast, but deep down, she loved their banter. It was the only time she felt truly connected. She knew she was starting to depend on Hood. She couldn't believe how fast she was falling for him. She knew it was wrong, but she couldn't help wanting to be closer. Hood, when are you free? We should celebrate you getting out from under all that bad press. Wanda couldn't contain her excitement, her feet swinging faster. She was no longer the nearly invincible Scarlet Witch, just a girl with a crush. Wanda, how about dinner the night after tomorrow? She typed it out quickly. She had a press conference tomorrow, otherwise, she wouldn't wait a second longer. Hood, sounds good. See you then, my little witch. Yes. Wanda pumped her fist and squealed. She'd see Hood the day after tomorrow. She looked at his picture again, then reluctantly put her phone down, but this time, she fell asleep with a smile. Asterisk, should I be honest with Hood? Tell him how I feel, star. That was Wanda's last thought. Across town, Hood set down his phone. Time to get some sleep. It had been a long day. Tomorrow he'd promised to see Gwen and her dad. The next day, bright and early, ding-dong. The bell above the oak door of the New York coffee shop tinkled. A familiar face stepped inside. Hood. My dear old friend, I've missed you. Uncle Crew, wiping down a table, grinned when he saw Hood. Uncle Crew, I think you miss my money more than me, Hood said, taking his usual chair. How can you say that? I think you're a fascinating guy, Uncle Crew said, waving his hand. The usual? Yep. A few minutes later, Uncle Crew set a Blue Mountain coffee in front of Hood. Asterisk ding. You tasted premium Jamaican Blue Mountain coffee, star. Asterisk reward, $100,000, star. The TV on the wall was broadcasting the news. Last night, sources reported that underground kingpin Wilson Fisk was beaten and seriously injured. Our station is closely monitoring the situation. The media's got guts these days, spreading rumors about Kingpin, Uncle Crew said, stroking his beard. Who in New York would dare lay a hand on Kingpin? Underground Kingpin. Hood glanced at the TV, then focused on stirring his coffee. You don't buy it either, right? Uncle Crew laughed from behind the counter. Hood just smiled, glancing out the window. He stopped stirring when a beautiful figure appeared outside. Dingling. The oak door opened, sunlight streaming in, and the energetic figure stepped inside. It was Gwen. She wore a light white plaid coat and hurried toward Hood. A whiff of orange perfume drifted toward him. Mr. Hood, Gwen said, smiling. You look gorgeous today, Hood said, admiring her outfit. Thanks. Gwen blushed. She clasped her hands behind her back, thinking of yesterday. She had been pretty bold. Uncle Crew, a bond coffee, please, Hood called out. Then he smiled at Gwen. Have a seat. This coffee's great. He knew that sometimes, you just had to take charge. It was more attractive. Okay. Gwen sat down across from him. You weren't so shy yesterday. You were much bolder, Hood said, teasing her. Gwen's face turned red. She picked up her coffee and took a sip, only to gasp as it burned her tongue. She lowered her head. She knew she'd been impulsive. Hood was handsome, but she had come on too strong. "I'm just kidding," Hood said. "Let's finish our coffee, then head to the hospital to see Mr. Stacy." "So, the instruments, the equipment." Gwen realized Hood hadn't brought anything. "No need for that. Let's just go see him first." Hood shook his head. "Just see him?" Gwen was disappointed. She thought Hood might be able to help her dad. Hood had surprised her before. St. John's Hospital in Queens, the best hospital in Queens. It was always bustling. "Gwen. Over here." As they walked down the hallway, Gwen's mother, Helen, waved. She'd been waiting. "Mom." Gwen hurried over, bringing Hood. Helen looked at the young man. "Who's this?" "Mom, this is Mr. Hood." Gwen introduced him. She'd told Helen about bringing someone to help her dad. "Him?" Helen looked Hood up and down, raising an eyebrow. He didn't look like a doctor. Too young, too well-dressed. "Mom, I'll take Hood inside," Gwen said. "Don't mind her, Mr. Hood. She's just worried about my dad." "It's okay." Hood nodded, looking at George, pale and unconscious in the bed. "He's been in a coma for over 6 months, Gwen said, tears welling up. Helen, who had followed them in, hugged Gwen. "Do you think he'll ever wake up?" "Uncle's in pretty bad shape," Hood said. "Normally, I'd say he'd never wake up." Gwen and Helen turned pale. Hood paused. "But..." Buzz. Light flickered in Hood's palm, but they didn't notice, then. Cough, cough, cough. George coughed, eyes widening. He gasped for air, confused. Gwen and Helen froze, then burst into tears. "Dad! Honey!" They rushed to hug George, crying. Hood stood back, smiling, watching the reunion. The horse rune pulsed in his palm. Chapter 30. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Outside the ward, tears welled in Gwen's eyes. "Hodder, thank you." She choked out. She'd never imagined her father would wake up, and according to the doctor, it wasn't just waking up. His muscles, atrophied from being bedridden, had recovered. He was even healthier than before. After further tests, they cleared him to go home. The doctor called it a miracle, unprecedented. "You're welcome. He's the lucky one. I didn't do anything." Hodder shook his head. "I know it was you." Gwen's nose was red. She knew it wasn't just luck. Her father only woke up after Hodder arrived. She wasn't sure how, but she knew he was the reason. A little shyly, she asked, "Are you free tomorrow? I'd love to take you out to dinner." Then she added, "It's Dad's way of saying thanks. Once he's settled, we'll throw a bigger party to really show our gratitude." "Tomorrow?" Hodder hesitated. He pictured Wanda in red. Gwen's parents could throw a party or not, it was really about Gwen. "I have a date with Wanda tomorrow night." If he turned Gwen down, he might blow his chance. "Are you busy tomorrow?" Gwen noticed his hesitation. "I wanted to thank you tonight, but Dad has follow-up appointments." "No problem." Hodder smiled. A real man doesn't have to choose. He can have it all. "See you tomorrow night." A quick brush of lips on his cheek, and Gwen ran back to the ward, blushing. Hodder grinned. The smell of youth. He was already looking forward to dinner. Ding. "With your kindness and boundless love, you healed George Stacy. Reward, Artificial Intelligence Red Queen." Artificial Intelligence Red Queen, an AI from the Resident Evil universe. She's everywhere in the Earth's network. You can call her anytime. Red Queen. Hodder was thrilled. He hadn't expected that. The Red Queen was powerful. More powerful than any AI on Earth. Ultron didn't come close. She had her own consciousness and access to the network. She was terrifyingly effective. Red Queen. Hodder put on his headset. She was already online. "Master, I'm here." It was a little girl's voice. Pull S.H.I.E.L.D.'s confidential documents and files on the cosmic cube. He was testing her. S.H.I.E.L.D. had the tightest security in the US, if she could get that, she could get into anything. Master, intrusion successful. Information acquired. A moment later, the Red Queen spoke. Hodder's phone vibrated. It was the cosmic cube file, level 9. S.H.I.E.L.D.'s second highest clearance level. The highest level, 10, was paper archives, unhackable. Impressive. Hodder skimmed through the file, nodding. With AI, no device could monitor him. He was getting noticed. It wouldn't be long before S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra took an interest. Leaving the hospital. Knock, knock, knock. Hodder was back in the Cayenne when someone tapped on the window. It was Tony Stark in sunglasses. Hod, it's really you. As the window rolled down, Tony looked surprised. Are you sick? Why didn't you call? I have the best medical team. He'd spotted the Cayenne. Hodder's was the only one in New York. No, just visiting a friend. Hodder smiled. What brings the CEO of Stark Industries here? He didn't expect Tony at St. John's. It was a great hospital, but nothing compared to Tony's team. Tony sighed, walked around to the passenger side, and got in. Visiting the injured civilians from Sokovia. He smiled bitterly. Sorry. Hodder saw the pain in Tony's face. He hadn't expected Tony to come in person. Don't be. Tony shook his head. If it wasn't my fault, this wouldn't have happened. He was guilty. And. Tony paused. If it wasn't for Wanda, I wouldn't have the guts to face them. Their reputation was only partially restored because of her. Wanda's approval ratings have skyrocketed. You're off the hook. Hodder knew it had repaired their image. Less negative news about the Avengers. Yeah. Tony lowered the seat inside. But it's not that simple. What's wrong? Tony looked worried. Wanda's hiding something, and someone's helping her. I know it's a good thing, but she doesn't trust us and hasn't told anyone. Tony was worried. This person had changed Wanda. He wondered if this person had ulterior motives for the Avengers. He was trying to find out who they were. Master, Tony Stark is investigating Wanda. You may be involved. The Red Queen's voice came through. Investigating. Hodder understood. Tony was proactive. He'd started investigating as soon as he knew Wanda hadn't revealed their relationship. Hodder looked at Tony, wanting to tell him, but stopped. He needed to respect Wanda's choice. Maybe she thought it wasn't time. Don't worry, Tony. Hodder patted his shoulder. Maybe Wanda's waiting for the right time. The right time? Tony looked at him, puzzled. She trusts you, but she needs to adjust. Pushing will only make things worse. Tony hesitated and nodded. Hood was right. He couldn't push. It was Wanda's privacy. Hodder, thanks. Dinner's on me later. I'm swamped. Tony decided to listen. When he got back, he'd tell Pepper to stop investigating. No problem. Hodder smiled. So many dinner invitations lately.